Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. This is Daniel here. I'm here in London today. If you're listening to this episode, you can also watch it on YouTube. So just follow the link in the show notes. And I have to thank my friends at Kin Agency, who are our partners, and Candid Commerce Events, who have actually kindly allowed me into their office and let me sit in this meeting room to record a couple of episodes today. So thanks to them. And as you can see, if you're watching us, I'm not alone. And I'm actually accompanied by someone that I've been very keen to have on the podcast for a while, actually, when he was in another job, but especially now that he's in a chief executive role. We love to have C-level people here on the podcast. We're not going to lie. And it's no other than David Flochel, or David Flochel, who's the CEO at Quorn Foods. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Daniel.
No, it's my pleasure. I wanted to ask you, how long have you been living in London?
In the area, southwest London, actually almost 10 years now, in two different times. The first time we were here, 2011 to 2015, and then we came back after Brexit. Different country.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, yes.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of going to it. Maybe for another podcast. I know there's a lot of debate on the Quo Vadis of the UK right now.
Yeah.
Which is, as somebody that likes to follow politics, it's very interesting to see because
We'll do that in another podcast.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you. So now you're a CEO.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting for people to understand what were like the key milestones in your career to become the CEO. Like what's your background?
Well, if I start on a personal note, I grew up in a small village in Normandy, in the middle of nowhere. My dad was a countryside vet.
Wow.
So there were many more cows than humans, where I was living and growing. Small harbor on the coast, but very much green behind the sea and on top of the hills with lots of cows. Granville, beautiful area, which I still go very often. I invest into the region there. I love it. However, it's very remote, and I think it shaped me from the start. It was too small for me. I wanted to see more. Yeah. I was very curious, I think. And I wanted to travel, to see, other parts of the world, even of France. So, of course, I studied in the northwest of France, stayed school, by the way, all along the way. Did okay at school. Took my time, though, but did okay. In the end, find my way into business school in the end.
Did you do like the long baccalaureate,
baccalaureate, and then baccalaureate +2, and then bachelor, and then the master, and finally the master in business management. Yeah.
Well, in France, if you want to go to the top schools, you do have to call it that long.
Yeah. So I did that, and during those years studying, I tried as much as possible to also have internships abroad. I spent, 6 months in the US as well studying.
And back then, it was a different world as well, no?
It was more an experience, to be honest. Absolutely. Yes.
Where did you go in the US?
Well, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wow.
So again, not the middle of nowhere, of course, for the US, kind of.
In the middle, but it's a bit like...
Yeah, a bit remote as well. But it was fantastic experience, and we could travel, along in the Northeast and Chicago, New York. So I visited all those places, which I loved, to be honest. I was also doing internships in the UK as much as I could. I worked in France for Mars already as a kind of year between, before my graduation and specialization into marketing and sales at the time. So I tried to have the maximum of experience really along that journey. More curious than anything, driven by curiosity, I'd say. Yeah. That's pretty what was the start, of that journey. If you have that, I think on your CV, just when you get graduated, you attract interesting recruiters. And I was lucky enough then to go to L'Oréal, and then they sent me for a couple of years to Scandinavia.
Wow.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
At the beginning, as brand manager.
I think you were probably at the time as well one of the few graduates of a Grand École that spoke English, probably.
Well, they were definitely looking for those kind of profiles, yes. And people again who's been traveling a bit, who worked abroad already, who had the experience, to work somewhere else, right, outside of France. So I enjoy that from the start. Then, I think I've managed my career. I was not very patient. I was quite ambitious, and I've tried always to perform in the job and then to relatively quickly move into the bigger role, internally or externally. I took some risk in a way, calculated for most of them. But yeah, this is how I grew up through the ranks. And then I started in marketing, as I just mentioned, went into customer development with Unilever, where I spent 5 years again in France, and then into the global account team in Rotterdam, so based in Holland. And then embraced the general management track with Mars, where I spent almost 10 years in the food and drink segment, where I led business unit. That was my first kind of full P&L responsibility. I did that in France. Then I went to the UK for the first time, then to the US, East Coast, etc., etc. And then I became CEO, standalone CEO in 2016 now. Yes, 10 years ago.
In what role?
Selecta, so the leading office coffee service and vending operator in Europe. Massive transformation, private equity owned. I'm sure we can talk about that later on. Difference between corporate and private equity. And that was really my first CEO standalone role. Yeah, 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
A lot has happened in the 10 years.
Absolutely. Oh yes, it definitely did. Yeah, a lot happened.
You mentioned about taking risk, which is something that I become passionate about as I see people's careers and my own career as well. How have you assessed risk in your career? Like, people could perceive changing, like leaving L'Oréal or leaving Unilever.
Yeah.
As a
risk. Yeah, it is. It is quite risky.
Yeah.
I mean, you could think so.
Yeah.
But I think, it's a bit calculated in a way at the same time, right? Because I think you need to assess the skills you've been building that you really master.
Yeah.
And then once you have that in your backpack, then you can get to the next journey, with more confidence, but still stretching yourself in an area that you don't necessarily fully master yet.
Yeah.
That was when I moved, for example, from the career in marketing, fast-moving consumer goods marketing, into customer development. But there was a perfect match at the time at Unilever to recruit people who had that marketing background to try to leverage more opportunity with customers and shift from transactional relationships into value creation relationships. Yeah. So that marketing background was of interest for them. And it excites me to get on that journey. So there's also, there's also a moment or a match, that can work, where you think, okay, this is a risk, but this is still, I would say, a calculated one, because my profile does match the needs of the company I'm joining at the same time. So it's a shared risk in a way.
Yeah. Now in hindsight, it feels like selfishly for you, it was a good move in the way that you got cross-functional experience and these are key building blocks to become a general manager. But it's easy to see now in hindsight, but at the time, it was like going out of your comfort zone as well. Like, was it like that curiosity that maybe drove that as well, like wanting to learn?
No, it's curiosity and ambition.
Yeah.
Combined.
Yeah.
The curiosity, yes, I was always looking for new experience and again, get new skills and stretch myself.
Yeah.
But I was always, I have to admit, quite ambitious because I wanted to become a GM at some point, and the sooner the better in a way. So I tried to stretch my career into what I thought was the right path to get to that general management role, which I got in 2011. No, in 28 when I joined Mars.
Okay.
28.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting because sometimes people say, oh yeah, I just like, the opportunities came to me, but clearly you had like the idea of like what it took to be a GM and what were the key experiences you needed, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I know that one thing that you kind of specialized in your career also as you become more senior has been like the whole transformation piece. And I know that before like this role that you have now, you were at Haleon,
Yeah.
big consumer healthcare company.
Yes.
But what's your experience been with transformation? I know this is a very broad question, so start wherever you like.
I mean, there are different types of transformation, obviously. There's a full turnaround that sometimes needs to happen.
Yeah.
This is a real transformation, or first step of a transformation, which is, for example, what I'm conducting now at Quorn, or what I had to do also at Selecta. There's also sometimes transformation which are sometimes defined as realignment of strategy and execution as well, which I think is something I've experienced also myself at Mars several times, or with Heineken. The Allion one was a different one. It was a pure, let's say, new experience. Also, I wanted to have of a carve out, because I'd done M&As, I'd done restructuring many times, but I'd never done a carve out. So I was interested by that opportunity. And because I had done so many of those M&As with the background of corporate NPE, I was again potentially, or I think, the right candidate for Allion to do that. So that's why I did that job for them. Yeah, I did that mission for them.
And to be fair, from what's in the press, it sounds like Haleon, in the consumer healthcare world, which is a bit wobbly, they seem to be doing pretty well.
They're doing very well. They're doing very well, absolutely. But the strategy is very clear, very clear, and good talent pool, very good talent. Of very, very talented people in the organization.
Like aligned well, like what culture they want as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big shift in there as well happening now, but I mean for good, and they're quite successful on that transformation for sure.
Yeah. And you talked about like restructuring.
Yes.
What does that look like? What have you done there?
Well, several times, right? Operating, I think, at the end with, if you drive a transformation, especially when a turnaround phase, you have to look at every line of the P&L to start with, and being able to improve the shape of your balance sheet relatively quickly. Usually the situation of those business are quite distressed, and you need to be very decisive and making decisions which can have an impact on people and restructuring. It's not something you like doing, but it's something you sometimes have to do. So operating with a lean organization hopefully help you to get a better shape of the P&L, as much as possible. So I've done that several times, but you usually start from the top of the P&L and you go down, right? So you start with your revenues, obviously, but there's most of the time a lot to do. Are you working with the right customers? Do you understand the consumer needs? Is your portfolio, relevant to those customers and consumers? So that's key. That sounds obvious. Most of the time you do a proper assessment on that, you find a lot of opportunities. From there, you can focus your investments and improve your trade terms, your route to market, your cost to serve to customers, which helps you as well, definitely. Without even thinking about growth of the category, but lots of that transformation and those steps in the turnaround are key. Yeah. Then you go into your COGS, and sometimes, most of the time, you have to look deep into your production costs and how really you operate as a supply chain or as a supply network. Second layer. Then you go into your marketing spend. Are you really optimizing your marketing mix and your spend? Do you get the best ROI? Do you even understand what's the best ROI would be or should be for this category, etc., etc. And then you go into the SG&A and the cost of the structure, and you make sure that once you have the right focus on the right portfolio, with the right supply chain, with the right investment behind your brands, usually you need less people, or you refocus the people in the areas that does matter, really, right? And this is when comes the restructuring, operating most of the time with a lean organization, but more focused.
And you mentioned the fact of being decisive.
Yes.
Is that like something that's maybe underplayed sometimes? That maybe when people think of restructuring, we think more about like how the strategy and how it will look like, but not maybe the execution?
No, it's totally. Strategy is one thing. I would say is the easy part. Execution is relentless. Execution is where a transformation becomes successful or not.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time, you became CEO because you have that instinct, you have that skill set, you have that background to write a strategy.
Yeah.
But the success of translating the strategy into real execution, it's really what makes the difference. And it's not easy. And I've failed many times, and I fail every day, but I try to learn and improve. Yeah, because it's relentless. It's an ongoing,
That's what happens when the
job.
management consultants are not in the room, right?
True, yes. Right, writing the nice slides is easy.
Yeah.
Executing against that simple strategy is very difficult.
What does like a CEO or C-level person need to do to make sure that that's happening?
You're talking about the execution now.
Yeah.
I try to apply as much as possible what I call, which is a very well-known concept of HPT, high-performing teams. And it starts by having very clear strategy, vision for the business. Then you go into the strategy itself. From the strategy, you define the goals of the team and the individual contribution to the goals. Right? With that comes the contribution of each individual into the bigger picture. When people understand how they contribute to the strategy and to the execution, you already have made a big step forward. Because with that contribution into the execution and to the success of the strategy comes recognition, comes reward, comes engagement. That's very, very important. Again, that sounds very simple, but aligning thousands of objectives behind the real core strategy execution is hard work.
And making it like trickle down.
Correct.
And taking the
Correct. This is how you make the difference. I'm now, after those many years of leadership, I really believe that's key.
Yeah.
That's key.
No, because that you, as with everything, you see a certain pattern, no?
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Totally.
What about M&A? Why do most M&As go wrong?
Well, I have experience with that. Successful and not so successful ones. That's a very good question, Daniel. Thanks for asking that. So let's start with, I think, what not necessarily go well. Underestimating the difference in culture is key. Overestimating, as always, the synergies, and especially the top-line synergies, which I call the soft synergies. You should really work hard on the hard synergies, the one that really gonna come through the P&L, which again goes to your COGS, your optimization of your SG&A, your optimization of all your spend, really, right? That's really key, I think. And this is where you need to have a super clear plan and focus on the execution of that. While you do that, then you can really focus on the execution of the top line synergies. But hopefully, you make sure that the combination of both there, will bring new value to customers, right? pure consolidation of existing players or, within different segments of geographies tends to be quite disappointing from a top line standpoint, because you don't necessarily bring something really new to consumers or customers. So you need to have that in mind. That's why those adjacencies that some of the consumer healthcare businesses do, I think they're very smart. They're very smart because they use their scale, the FMCG scale, to invest into new territories, new segments.
And like accelerate as a very like a sluggish sector.
Yes.
That maybe is good margins, but a better route to market could be making much more money.
Exactly. I'm not saying that the consolidation of companies doing the kind of same business and same areas, same sectors don't work. It can make sense for an industry consolidation, but it's harder to get the growth from those. I believe so. However, you can still get significant, let's say, margin improvement with that.
Isn't it ironical that at the same time we're seeing a mega merger in snacking?
I know.
And a mega divestment, which is now being paused on the other side, no?
Yeah.
It's just super.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned private equity.
Yes.
That you worked in private equity.
Yes.
What
KKR. 4 years for KKR.
You were working for KKR.
Well, I was the CEO of a KKR, company, part of the portfolio of
Selecta,
KKR.
right?
Selecta, yeah.
What is the dynamic like when you're owned by KKR and you're a CEO of one of the company?
Yeah, I had that question many times. People are very curious about that.
Yeah.
It is different to the corporate world. But, okay, let's not forget that in the corporate world, listed or not listed, you still need to perform.
Yeah.
Every period, every quarter, you deliver your numbers, right? As a GM, as a regional president, as a CEO. It's not real different from that perspective with private equities. What I think is different is the importance of strategy, of execution of the strategy, the expectations of not coming with many surprises. And if you come with surprises, you have to come with a solution, because you're CEO, you're at the end of the day standalone CEO, so making the decision yourself. So you need to show that you look 360 at the different options. Then you can discuss options. But you come with solutions. Not only with problems. And the speed in decision making is so refreshing and very different to the corporate world. Decisions are made faster. So you need to be able to cope with that speed. And the decision making, which is stretching the risk level, because sometimes you make decision without having 100% the answer, but at 80% you shoot and you go. And if it doesn't work, well, then you reassess, and again you come back with different solutions. So this is how it works. That's my experience.
No, and one of the guests that we had on the podcast was a chief strategy officer, Martin Fresh, who's done work with private equity. His theory said public companies or non-public, but companies that are not PE would be better run when they have to make a decision, they would be like, what would private equity do in this context?
True.
I mean, more like decisive, I think.
I'm trying to apply both of the world really in my job now, because I have both experiences. So I always try to think, of course, corporate, more long-term thinking, but also exactly to your point, what would I do as an investor in a private equity world? And I think it can help accelerate some decision making and risk taking.
Yeah. And what's been like your personal journey? Because as you were developing your career, how have you managed personally that as well? Moving geographies, taking on more responsibility, long days, and changing jobs, having people management, higher stakes.
Well, I would say quite naturally, and I loved it from start to finish. I've been lucky enough for the first 25 years of my career to grow through the ranks and get bigger jobs and bigger responsibilities, and really being able to cope, to cope very nicely with that higher stakes, I would say. Of course, there were challenges, but I think as long as you feel that, first of all, on the personal side, you are supported. It sounds obvious again, but being, in a very healthy relationship, a situation as a couple, as a family,
with your partner, with your
it's super important. It's extremely important. Extremely important.
Did you move like when you moved?
We moved all the time together.
With your partner?
Yeah. We're together since almost more than 25 years now. And we've always been moving together, and the kids went to international school. They grew up in different countries, and so that's really the cement of everything. That has to be very strong.
Yeah. How have you managed having that conversation, or you call that from the office and well, we may have to move.
That conversation happened several times. And I was lucky enough to be with my wife, and she's always also been quite curious and always open to experience new countries and new cultures. That's also part, of course, of the success, I think, on my side. But back to your question, so that element is key, right? Really, that the personal stability, I would say, and the alignment of what do you want to experience together as a family is very important. It helps you a lot. From there, we're going back to the point of taking risk, but again, calculated, step by step, stretching yourself all the time a bit more, but not to the extreme, right? Always making sure that what you've been developing in terms of skill set and experience will help for the next job. Yeah? I think that's the most important thing. You stretch, but with the confidence that you're not overstretching yourself. And of course, at some point you do, right? My financial acumen had to raise massively when I joined Selecta, because that was a pretty distressed company. And cash was king.
And owned by private equity.
And owned by private equity. So, I had to work hard on that, much harder than I was at Mars, where I had healthier P&Ls and, a different culture, I would say, as well. So, you stretch yourself there more than you expected, but it was definitely worth spending the hours because you learn so much from that as well. And it's so rewarding to learn so much from it as well. Because we went into roadshows and we did refinancings, and that was something I'd never done before. And I loved it. Again, back to your point, what helps you on that journey, I think, is being surrounded by the right support from, higher people in the organization, the corporate world, the right mentors, or, having the right board working with. I was lucky at Selecta to work with a great chairman, right? And we were really working together on that full journey. And it helped a lot because you learn a lot from it as well.
I think that it's interesting because when you're early in your career, like a manager, a director, where you're sitting more at the matrix level and you people move all the time and it's a lot of different teams, the most important thing, apart from your direct boss, which is always the most important thing probably, it's the culture of the company as a whole, no?
Yeah.
But I think that when you reach a certain level, it's more these 1 to 5 key people
100%.
that you have to work with day to day and take real big decisions with, what is your personal connection with them.
And that's the stakeholder management and networking within the ecosystem you operate, whatever the ecosystem is, within your company or your category, is key, is very important. And I've learned it the hard way because in some areas, I did a good enough job, or I was definitely not aligned with people I was with, and guess what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work for both, by the way.
Exactly.
But again, to get to that level of, self-awareness, takes some time. It's through experience that you get there.
It's through hard knocks that you get.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah,
It is what it
It's
is.
the only way.
Yeah, it's the only way. Yeah.
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 And tell me about like, I know that like, what was it, 3 years ago, you had like something unexpected happened in your life?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Exactly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a stroke.
A stroke.
Yeah. It was very tough.
How did it happen?
It happened without any kind of sign that it could happen. It happened suddenly. And, there was nothing that I could have done to prevent it. It's just a bit of bad luck. But physically, I was all fine. I didn't have any kind of, overweight or cholesterol or anything like that. It just like I had a, blood clot, and then it ended up in my brain, really. Yeah?
You can't really detect that.
Which you cannot really detect now. Post what happened, doctors, great doctors, when I was living in Switzerland, in Lucerne, helped me to understand what could have happened, right? I had a thrombosis at some point, maybe the blood clot was still there, not fully dissolved. Okay, and then it happened.
Yeah.
What matters is not why it happened, but what do you do to prevent it, and more than that, what happened what happened after the stroke that I had to do to regain my confidence in who I was.
Yeah.
Because when I woke up that morning, almost 5 years ago, on the dot pretty much, I could not even tell the doctors where my home address was. It was that bad.
You couldn't.
No.
And you remember that?
I couldn't remember anything.
You remember like being in the
Yeah. Oh, definitely, because it was shocking, right?
Yeah.
And all my right side was paralyzed. So it's been a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
To get back on track.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough again to be, supported by my family.
Yeah.
Very important again.
That's probably when you. I'm sure you knew already, but it's probably when it really hits hard, no?
Exactly, absolutely. And good doctors, fantastic healthcare system in Switzerland. So very lucky in a way that I could, be supported like that and be able to recover quickly because 4 months later I was back to work.
Wow.
Potentially a bit too early. I get that, okay, but I felt it was the right thing to do for me anyway to regain, my personal mental health as well. I could not see myself longer out of work. Not being a workaholic, but a bit.
No, I know what you mean, because sometimes it's like the fine balance between recovering and following like the medical advice, which is the most important thing, but also knowing yourself. And sometimes you just need to like get the traction back to like, and also it's a thing of confidence as you.
It is.
Mentioned.
And it's it was during COVID as well, huh?
Wow.
So I was isolated from seeing anybody, and I could see the family on screens, but not physically.
Wow.
I didn't really get out of my rooms, right? In the hospital or in the rehab clinic. So that was kind of monastic, I would say, a retreat, about myself, which is good at the same time. Because you always try to get the best out of, the worst, I would say.
Yeah.
And as the American says, which I think is true, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
It makes you reflect a lot, of what you've done and potentially what you want to do different going forward.
Yeah.
And this is where I think I shifted my focus more into the purpose of businesses I would like to work for, or what could I bring to the different stakeholders, right? Whatever the business would be, I would be leading in terms of purpose, in terms of value creation, with clear vision, with a stronger purpose, I would say, not just for the sake of, EBITDA, operating profit or cash at bank.
Which is the thing. I think that when you work in an industry you love. And I think that we're lucky to work in consumer goods, which I think people generally really like to work here.
Yeah. The passionate people.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're very lucky, honestly, because there's so many people that don't like their job, that it's just like a chore to live.
Yeah.
Then you could. That's the thing. You don't really need to connect with a purpose, but if you are able to connect that love for business with a purpose, it's
Exactly.
fantastic.
But you need to define opportunities and business to do so.
Yeah, exactly.
And before you find it, you have to fail a couple of times before you get into, okay, this is where I think I can really bring my best. Yeah, from purpose to strategy to execution.
We've also all heard about businesses that have an amazing purpose, but then they have a terrible culture, right?
Yeah.
So that's also something that we have to like.
Yeah, but when you're CEO, you ultimate responsible person in the business. So if the culture is not good, you are part of the problem, or at least what do you do to change it, right?
That's an interesting one, actually, because I think that you feel like a lot of times when you speak with a manager in a company that has a bad culture, there's like a big disconnect between what the C-level says and then what the culture actually is, so how do you, like, from your position, kind of like connect with those, like, the more organic living thing that company culture is?
Yeah. I'm trade old school on that, but I think I've learned that at Mars, and Mars to me remain a very unique and great culture.
There's books about the Mars culture.
Yeah, of course.
Even there's not many other companies that have that.
Correct. Very, very clear and simple principles applied, relentlessly across the organization in decision making, in how we position the brand, the business, we make decisions, we engage people. Very clear, number one. But number two as well, visibility of leadership, accessibility of leadership. That's key. Walking the shop floor, being around, being visible, being open to dialogue, explaining many times the strategy, or how we're performing. That's key. And I've learned that at Mars. I think Mars has a fantastic culture for that. This, combined with the HPT principle I mentioned, I think makes, I hope, and I believe so, a stronger culture.
Yeah. No, I think what you're saying about clarity, simplicity, and if you like, even like having like a few rules I think is very important. I think it's very important actually in business, but also like in society. I think too many times everybody wants to have rights, but I think that maybe not enough we're reminded that that needs to be with a certain framework.
Yes.
And I don't think it necessarily, of course it's coercive to a point, but it's also liberating. If you know what you can do and what you can't.
Exactly.
And what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Exactly.
Right?
At Mars, we used to call it freedom in a framework. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I still apply it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
And actually, what personally, like, how have you found, because that's something that you've taken on, like more and more people responsibility as you've grown, and also different type of people, level, age, generations, countries. What is your personal approach to leadership, if you like? Like, what would you say is your, if you had to, how do you think your people that work for you would define you?
Yeah. It's a combination of clarity. I think I try to bring, and I force myself to be focused and clear about expectations.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's a combination between that clarity and then the expectations, where I'm quite demanding. I'm always shooting for stretch, trying to manage as well, where we are and where we could be.
Yeah.
And hopefully help people to stretch themselves to get to the next level of performance. Doing that with I hope, an engaging culture where I try to bring approachability, and have a bit of fun as well, as much as, we work hard, right? So that's why I try to balance who I am as a person and what I bring to the business. There's one thing that I've learned, which has been potentially, I think, one of the biggest leadership learning I really had, was my panel to become a GM at Mars. The first time I felt, and the feedback was brilliant on all the theoretical skills, but the feedback was also, David, we don't know who you are. You give us the management book, but you don't know who we are. And it shifted me so much after reflection that being yourself, being more human, being authentic, showing some vulnerabilities is key, especially in leadership. People want to know who you are. They will not follow somebody they don't really understand, grasp. You have to bring that piece of you in the business. That's key.
It's an interesting one because it's like, and I guess it just takes confidence, experience, and to be able to find that version of yourself that it's truly yourself, but that's suitable as well. And because of course, when you're a leader in your position, whatever you do, especially the things you do wrong, people will be watching, right?
But as long as you're clear about you're making that decision, not being 100% sure, but at some point you need to make a decision. And guess what? If it doesn't work, we will revisit it. But as long as you're very clear about the target, the milestones, and what you're trying to get to, that's fine. People understand that.
It's that
people understand
the human side dimension as well.
People understand much more than what traditionally leaders thought people would understand.
Interesting. Tell me about your current role at Quorn. And about the company as well.
But for me, it's the sweet spot. Because I am supported by great shareholders. I have a lot of autonomy in the decision making. I've been able to reshape the team the way I want. I can definitely drive the vision, which was already there, but with a different strategy, but driving towards a purpose, which I think is fantastic, bringing, healthy food for people and the planet, beautiful purpose. And we are trying very hard now to turn around the business performance in order to get into more sustainable growth in the coming years. So it's a journey that we're on. I'm at the end of year one of that turnaround. There's at least another year of that phase, but so far so good, as we say. We're making some good progress. So I just love the combination of all the things I just mentioned, really. It's super exciting for me.
Because for whoever doesn't know the products, and obviously when the podcast comes out, the brand will be there. So I guess the people will look as well, but just in case, it's basically like
plant-based, meat alternative, positive protein alternative diet for consumers, available in chilled and in frozen. And the main brand is Quorn, but we also have Golden, which is more pure, let's say, plant-based alchemy kind of brand that we're trying to bring to life.
Interesting. Plant-based, super interesting category.
Yes.
I think it's something that has to end up doing well somehow.
We did well until 2020, early 2021.
So what happened?
What happened? Combination of different factors. The brands benefited anyway from COVID and people cooking more from home. Let's be clear. That's why you had that additional growth coming in 2020. From there, there's been a combination of different factors. There's been lots of new startups and new brands coming in. Let's be honest, not always with top quality product, number one, so proliferation of brands. Inflation, war in Ukraine and cost of energy and everything that goes with it. Yeah, it also didn't really help. And I would say as well, right, the overall consumer sentiment about ultra processed food. We started at that time. The combination of the three ended up in the decline of a category which was rocketing, double-digit growth into decline. However, in 2025, the category is still higher and bigger than it was 7-8 years ago. So it has been declining, but it's still, it's still bigger than it was before COVID. And I say as well that the category decline has slowed down because some of the low quality products have now disappeared. Customers, retailers are making choices about who they want to keep on shelves, who is more relevant to consumers. So that combination is helping the category, I hope, to rebound. And as market leader in the UK or number 2 in many other markets where we operate, Sweden, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, US, we're number 4 or 5 in the US, but elsewhere, we have a key role to play to bring the category back into growth.
Yeah, I think it's a whole interesting to see how like you and your competitors, I guess, can get together maybe like, because it is a bit of like the thing of all the tide that puts all boats up, something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, as a lobby, maybe as an industry, to push it back.
For sure, yeah, absolutely, yes.
And why? And I see that point that you say about like that it aligns like your business part and your mission part, but I think that somebody like you, as much as Quorn decides to hire you, you also decide to join them.
Yes.
You must believe that the category will do well.
I do, but I also like the challenge, and I joined the company for 3 main reasons. The first one was this challenge, this transformation, this big transformation I had to lead. Starting with a turnaround. I've done that in different contexts, different companies, but I've done that several times. So I felt more at ease driving that kind of agenda with not fear, but I think more clarity than ever. Then the purpose of this company. You remember what I just said about my personal journey, right? Since then, I've been reflecting a lot and wanted to make a difference into a category that can really make a difference for people diet, people health, planet. There's lots of very good things that Quorn brings, and I really wanted to be part of that journey. And then it's the people that you meet and people that you work with. Again, I mentioned my past experience with chairmen and boards and mentors within Mars, etc. It's a bit of the same. I clicked very nicely with, Henry Soisanto, the main shareholder of the company, which gave me confidence that, I could work for this man. We had the same vision, the same ambition, the same purpose that we want to bring, to consumers with Quorn. So that was definitely, those were the main reasons why I joined.
And you've been there for a year or so.
Yeah, almost 16 months now already.
There you go. And I mean, normally, within 3 months or 10 days if it will work out or not. So the fact that you've been there for a year is a good sign.
Yeah, it's a good sign. As I said, so far so good.
So far, so good. You can never relax.
Performance? No, you don't.
We have this one question that we ask all our guests in this show.
Yes.
Very short question, but maybe not an easy one to answer, which is if you went back to yourself as you were starting to work and you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
There's things I would change and things I would still do again. I'd double down, right?
It can be both.
Exactly. I think be curious. Yeah. If you want to grow, if you want to become, especially those days when the world becomes more and more complex, the curiosity to learn is number one. Okay, number one. Number 2 is what I think I have learned from my time at Mars, which I mentioned as well. be yourself, right? Don't be authentic. Stay true to yourself. Easy to say, not necessarily easy to do, but it will protect you from joining companies where you're not part of the culture, right? Yeah. Because people will see it on the other side as well, and they will not hire you because you are yourself, you know, and it will click much more with companies than others, and then this is where you potentially will be more successful, yeah? So instinct, authenticity, and I think the third one is probably put the effort, because you usually make the difference because you just work harder. Yes, work smart is great, okay? But put a bit more effort, always make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think part of working smart is to know in what things to work hard.
Yeah.
Probably as well.
Exactly. So the combination of the three things would be my advice. By the way, those are the advice I start to have to discuss with my kids. Yeah, you know, they're gonna graduate very soon, and this is the conversation I'm having with them now, which is even more, you know, rewarding, but at the same time scary. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, David, that was very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for joining me here in London. It always adds value to do it in person, right?
Exactly. It was great to see you again.
Thank you. Well, thanks to our audience as well for tuning in. I'm sure you enjoyed this a lot. So feel free to tune into the next episode every Wednesday and every Saturday on here in FMCG. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Cool. It was good, no?
I think so.
Yeah, no, it was super fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, as you saw, like, I was writing like some things. I like not being impatient as well.
This podcast episode
is taking risk and also being impatient are two things
By listening
that.
to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.